Las Vegas. But it's my pleasure to introduce two of the probably best experts in the bullion industry, gold and silver. We have with us tonight David Morgan of the silverinvestor.com and Bill Murphy, who's the chairman of GATA. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce David Morgan.
You can see the title of this presentation. Silver, the best investment for in 100 years. Question mark. I put a question mark on there because the title was given to me by Mark, so if anything goes wrong, that title is his fault. But silver certainly is probably one of the best investments and has proven to be so in the last decade or more. However, it's also one of the most volatile investments that you can make in the commodity sector. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is there's so much leverage in the futures market that sets the price. And secondly, since any small market can be manipulated, the smaller the market, the easier it is to move the price around both up and down. That's the website. I think most of you are not familiar with my work. It's two ways to get there, silver-investor.com or themorganreport.com, either one. I have published a great deal in the book domain. I'm in the investing rules book. Such notables as Sir John Templeton are in that book. I'm not saying I'm anywhere close to Sir John Templeton. I'm just pointing out that that's an interesting book. Experts from all over the world were put into that book for their expertise. I wrote the book Skinny on Silver Investing, and that book has been translated into German. And as it currently stands, the Morgan Report is being translated into Chinese, German, French, and of course I do speak English. That's what the report looks like from the top view. It's usually 12 to 16 pages. I am a top-down analyst. I look at silver from the commodity side all the way down to the coin market, and that's on the bullion half. And then I look at mining companies all the way from the top-tier cash-rich unhedged mining companies, which I favor for stable investment purposes, all the way down to some of the most speculative juniors you'll ever put in. Silver has obviously moved a great deal, as I said earlier. This last move last year was one of the best. We had silver move from roughly the $19 level up to around 26-ish. At that time, my work and the way I watch these markets, silver was actually starting to roll over a little bit. And I was starting to take some profits around the $26 level. So from 19 to 26 on leverage is a pretty nice move. About that time, QE2 was announced. Now, there is no market that I've studied, and I've studied most of them carefully, that moves like silver moves when there's inflation. QE2 was announced, and silver went from $26 the ounce to $48 the ounce, and you can see that move on this chart. Silver can move. Nothing will protect you in a currency uncertainty like silver. Gold does a great job, but silver will do even better. But there's an if in that statement. And we don't know the future. I think very strongly that we're going to see more currency depreciation breaking out into full-blown currency crisis. We're already seeing evidence of that. China and Russia are trading currency to currency, circumventing the US dollar. And India is doing the same thing. It's also happening with Japan. You're seeing gold traded for oil. So there's lots of reasons why the US dollar will no longer be the reserve currency of the world. And if there's one certainty in the financial markets, it's this. There's never been an unbacked fiat-only government edict currency that's ever survived the test of time. Not one. But there is one set of currencies that has survived the test of time, and that's precious metals. So I'm not up here telling you to sell everything and buy gold and silver. But what I am saying is you should have probably at least a 10% allocation to those metals. And if you don't, you really don't understand what's going on in this financial climate. This is probably the most important chart that I could show you. It's pretty easy to explain. If you look at the investable bullion silver supply, I'm talking apples to apples. I'm not talking silverware, I'm not talking silver jewelry or silver rings, I'm talking silver bullion. The amount of silver bullion right now is 1/2 of what it was in 1990, roughly 1 billion ounces. Now gold actually has gone up in the last 11 years. The gold supply in bar form only, so again, apples to apples, is over 2 billion ounces. So there's actually less investable bullion supply in silver than there is in gold. And most people just say, I don't believe it, but that's a fact. Question I get quite often, gold or silver? Well, I'm not sure what I want. Should I buy gold? Should I buy silver? And the answer is, I don't care. I mean, I do and I don't. I don't want to be too aloof up here, but gold and silver correlate 84% of the time. I think you should have both. I actually believe the older you are, the more you should favor gold over silver. But silver, I said, would outperform gold, and it has outperformed gold since the bull market began, but it's a rough ride. That's why it's a precious metals portfolio. You really want both the metals in your portfolio, both gold and silver, stocks and otherwise. You don't want to ride one horse. I don't believe in that. But as far as how did they do in inflation, gold's going to do great in deflation, silver won't, and all that stuff that you hear all the time, the facts are what the facts are. They're correlated 84% of the time. We've already been through an inflation and deflation scare twice already in the last decade. So they do correlate. It doesn't really matter if you're looking at it from that aspect. Look at what the truth is. Silver's demand has two main aspects, investment demand and industrial demand. Both are increasing. The medical uses in silver are too numerous to name, but silver is a natural biocide. It kills germs on contact. In fact, as much as the FDA doesn't want to admit it, they are letting silver go into some of the water supply because it will kill pathogens that nothing else can. Of course, you can drink pure chlorine, it'll kill off the pathogens, but you might end up on the floor as well. I'm not pro-chlorine, I like using silver as a biocide. Solar power, it's one of the biggest stories in the silver market. All governments are pretty much pushing the clean, green energy. I'm an engineer. My first degree is in engineering. My second degree is in business. Really, solar is not a very efficient means of generating electricity. In some areas it's very important to use solar, but those are very sporadic. Nonetheless, it pushes on for solar, and that's beneficial to the silver story. If you look at Jessica Cross's study she did in 2010. This is her projection going out to 2020 for food hygiene and water purification. You see massive amounts of silver used on an annual basis. Somewhere topping out near 95 million ounces a year on an annual basis. Water purification using silver is probably the best methodology you can possibly use. There's no repercussions to it whatsoever. Food packaging is where you're using nano silver in the plastics. And look, when you're growing food, and it's important, we all like to eat, you want to preserve that food as long as you possibly can. Silver adds to that because of its properties. So you don't hear about that much, but people that study the market like I do from all aspects will tell you that, and that's the truth, and that industry is growing as well as the water purification. Solar and mirrors, the projection there was to ramp up rapidly to 2014, which we're pretty much on track, but there was a new study done. In fact, I was asked by one of the people from Kitco to put in my 2 cents, and my 2 research assistants were busy on the project, but she actually had a little bit better information than we had at the time. And so this is toned down somewhat. The projection here from Jessica going back a few years was 140 million ounces on an annual basis starting about 2015 and leveling off. Right now it looks like it's going to drop down all the way to 100 million ounces a year on an annual basis. Still rather stellar. Look back to like 5 years ago or so, and basically there was very little solar going on. It was here and there. China does almost all the solar panels, and they have been doubling their production in the last 2 years. It will slow down, and this chart is too bullish. Nonetheless, the solar story is still viable and will continue. Investment demand is the real story in silver. Even though industrial demand is about 54% of the market, all markets move at the margin. It's the last person at Sotheby's that's bidding on a Rembrandt that gets it. That's what an open outcry system is about. That's how markets are formed. Right now, the total bullion supply, as I showed you, is roughly 1 billion ounces. This is what's in the public domain, and I can show you there's roughly 750 million ounces that is tightly held. All that silver for all practical purposes except a minuscule 30 million ounces on the COMEX that's in the dealer category is held by strong hands. So any new buying will usually stabilize the price and move it up eventually. Most of the people that are long-term investors in the silver market are believers. What do I mean by believers? They believe the basic outline I'm giving you, that all fiat currencies have problems, that when uncertainty strikes the markets, you want something stable. The most certain thing that you can have in a portfolio is money that's stood the test of time. 5,000 years, gold and silver have that track record, nothing else does. Most of the people that are in these fund managers, I know several by name, certainly don't know them all, are of the allocation model that I outlined. They probably have 10 or 15%, but when you're managing $1 billion, that's a significant amount of money that's sitting in the silver market. So where are we now? And where are we now? Well, we're below 28, as I think everyone in this room that follows the silver market knows, but on an inflation-adjusted basis, we have got a long ways to go. So certainly when silver gets below 30 or 35 or whatever price you think it shouldn't be below, and it is, I understand. You can be disheartened, you can be upset, you can get mad, you can do anything. You can have an emotion, because markets are driven by emotion, not by logic. But the truth of the matter is, if you adjusted the silver price to inflation, using the government's numbers, which I don't know about you, but I don't trust them, but if you use their numbers, you'd have about $140 silver. Now let's think about that. I mean, I got a little gray hair. But back in 1980, January 21st, when gold peaked, that was $850 the ounce and silver was at $50 the ounce. And what were the problem base? What kind of financial problems were we having then? Well, they were minuscule compared to what they are now. We had inflation rampant in the United States. That was it. The only market buying silver was the United States. Now we have a global economic crisis. We've had the crisis of 2008, and people everywhere are buying silver and gold. And there's less silver to be purchased now than there was in 1980. So people ask me, do I think the price is going back to 50? I sort of chuckle, because the last leg of any market is the most bullish leg. And we're not there yet. We probably won't start that leg until probably 2013, maybe 2014 at the latest, in my very studied opinion. But hold on, because it's going to be the ride of all rides as far as I'm concerned. That's the inflation-adjusted price of silver in constant dollars. Its high was $800 an ounce in the 14th century, and I'm predicting it to go to at least $100 an ounce. So I'm at 1/8 of the inflation-adjusted price, so that's pretty conservative. I think, again, we've got a long ways to go. And then the last thing is the bubble. You know, everyone says on the mainstream press and even the mainstream financial press that we're in a bubble. How many here follow me like on CNBC and, you know, seen me before like on TV? Just raise your hands. Okay, maybe 20% of the room. The last time I was on CNBC, which is pretty mainstream, and I'll tell you how they do it. You have to submit all the questions ahead of time. So they get to work on them for like 24 hours and spin them on you. And they're pretty good at that. And the last time I was on, they're asking about gold being in a bubble. And they really were trying to get me to say that gold's in a bubble. And I said, no, gold is not in a bubble. The bubble is the debt markets. It's the amount of currency that's being printed on back that's the bubble. And they had technical problems and I got cut off. So I can almost guarantee I'm not getting back on CNBC, although Fox Business doesn't set any agenda. Fox will just ask me questions, I get to answer them. Back to this chart. I'm sorry I digress, but I had to get that out. I do have a sense of humor. This is the bubble chart, okay? Now look, if you look at gold, it's up, at the time I did this chart, roughly 500%, and at the time the silver's off of this now, but up roughly 900%. Now let's look at that compared to such stalwarts as AIG of 4,200%. Now how about something really safe like my sister was in, like Fannie Mae, 13,000%. Now look, if you think we're in a bubble, look again, because the facts are that we're not even close to where we're going. And I believe with all my heart and soul that the gold and silver markets are going into the history books, because we have never been in a financial conundrum like we are now. We're in a situation we've never faced before, and when the, what I call sleeping masses wake up to the truth, they're going to be buying gold and silver hand over fist, and the problem is it's a very, very small market. That's it for me. Thank you for your attention.